like genetic differences where women are better biologically at certain things and men are better biologically.
But see, I don't think everyone will agree with that.
Yo, B, let's go.
You may have seen the clip and maybe heard word of mouth, yet another podcast. Man, what could it be about? Is it truth or opinion? A couple of contradictions. We're here to challenge tradition and twist your vision. So we set on a mission to bring you rebel wisdom.
Welcome back, Rebels, to another episode of Rebel Wisdom. There's a little nugget in this episode. I'll let you, if you're watching, for those watching, there's a nugget. Might be really hard to find, but something's a little different about this episode, visually looking at it, that you may be able to pick up on if you're watching. So, super excited about this episode. Here with my boy B, as usual. I'm Julian, and today we're going to get into some gender roles. I feel like this is a spicy topic, but as they all are, one we like to have discussion on and like can get pretty passionate about. So without further ado, we're gonna jump into it. I was gonna start, and give me your thoughts. I was gonna start just kind of, I think, defining like what gender roles have historically been.
Yeah, we can talk about what they are often thought about as today, just
Right.
so that we're all on the same page.
Okay. I was even gonna say like going back in time, and I don't know if this is accurate, but kind of theorize on what defines what men do and what defines what women do, like from a hunter-gatherer standpoint to
They started.
you know what I mean? I don't know what time frame, if we're looking at the period of time this is, but as we all, I think, can agree on, like at one point it was traditionally looked at like, hey, men are going to go out, they're going to get the food, they're going to hunt, they're going to gather possibly and bring it back to the community, the tribe, the family, however you want to look at that community structure. And, the women may have been on a more nurturing role, a cooking, taking care of the family within the tribe community, etc. And I think, there may be something that predates that, but like from a general gist, like that's, how the roles traditionally have been. Now, what's going to be interesting is like we look over time, how have those roles evolved and maybe what they look like today.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you have any opening thoughts on that as we progress through time and see like, okay, starting from that start point, what is kind of
when did it actually start to change though?
Right, yeah.
'Cause even up to World War II, like maybe up to before then, people were pretty, even after like the majority norms
Yes.
was men go get the money.
I agree.
Women typically stay at home. And it's probably not even, in the last 20, 30 years that's really started to not necessarily be the majority. Like the majority hasn't really changed, I think. But the idea of, hey, let's look into this, the concept started to emerge at least.
Yes, I would agree. I think, which is what's interesting. So like, I think that main narrative is still the same, where on average, men are typically the, ones in the household that we'll say the breadwinners is a common term used, and the providers in that sense. And obviously women bear the children, are still known to be the nurturers, and oftentimes like taking care of things within the confines of the household. So it's like, I don't know. My question is, over as time is shifting, like everything, it changed with the times. It's just been this super slow evolution of these roles maybe expanding, and in that expansion they're starting to like bleed into each other a little bit, I think. And you may get women doing more of the traditional roles men did, or vice versa. So yeah, I just think that's interesting to like, why maybe like what are some of the driving factors of that? I'm trying to like rack my brain.
I think here's my thought.
Okay.
I think typically historically women has historically women has not had the same equal rights as men have enjoyed.
Yes.
Like for voting, for example, right? We had the women's suffrage movement, and then recently more and more companies and organizations, and they care about the inclusion. Like, hey, we want to be a diverse group of people.
Mm-hmm.
So here's our target quota of like, hey, we want to have in a skewed. If previously was skewed, the male to women distribution was kind of skewed, right? Like, let's say they had 90% male and 10% female in this one position at this one particular organization, and they might be like, hey, let's start looking into, increasing that to 80-20 or 70-30. And then, I mean, naturally, in more the progressive type of ideology, they're going to naturally say, hey, we want to be included. We as in women want to be included into all these things and trying to get the pay gap down and whatever. I think that's the thought behind it. I think I could be totally wrong, but I don't think I'm too far off.
No, I think that's a good point. There's definitely a realization over time that less of, hey, you are this gender that's assigned to this role, and more of, you're a capable human. Now let's see how that fits whatever structure. I think it is very much individualized for whatever situation, whatever company, whatever job. I think men are predisposed to do some things better, and women are predisposed to do some things better. But in that narrative, I'll throw, like, my opinion is that I definitely think, as we stated, we're trending towards an era or a period in time where I don't know if it'll be perfectly even, but I think the gender roles are kind of dwindling and like going away, which I'm a fan of personally. I think it's pretty cool.
Why are you a fan of that? Like, do we need to close the gaps on some of the stuff?
Mm-hmm.
That's my question, because, for example, if, like, I'll speak firsthand.
Yeah.
Like, I'm an engineer.
Yeah.
And I work at a company that's the primary, it's behind engineering, technology. And, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, in the engineer, we have a lot of different types of jobs, right? Like HR, we got the managers, the C-suite
company, right.
We got, and then we got the engineers. But I'm talking just for the engineering group. That most likely 99% of the time they get an engineering degree is a male. Engineers, they got their engineering degree, but then the distribution between men and women are, I want to say it's like 83% men, 17% female.
Is this like at your
This
company?
is my company.
Okay.
And then we have a target to get to 80-20 by 2020, end of 2025.
Okay.
So you got a year and a chunk.
Okay.
But just naturally looking at that, I don't think it's because women are less capable or women. It's not. There's just not genuine interest in women pursuing the engineering STEM degrees. The interest is not there.
Yes.
It's just less people that goes around. Therefore, it becomes like that.
Yeah, that's good. I think so. Those are numbers, so like that's factual. But I think so. Peeling that layer back, it's like, why are women less? I think going back to that narrative that we introduced about, the hunters, gatherers, and nurturers, etc. Just over time, women have been less exposed to these fields, and honestly, less encouraged to like go in these fields.
You're right. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I think it was a Netflix documentary. I think, but it was something along the line of one of the greatest inventions of the 1900s. Or I don't remember the exact thing, but it was like the refrigerator or something like that. And you're like, that's crazy. Like, how could that be the greatest invention of 1900? But then it went from the point of view that, like, traditionally women had to create every single meal for the entire family every single day, and they had to get fresh food like every single day from the.
It's crazy to think about. You never really think.
But then with the invention of it doesn't have to be fridge, but everything that we see in the kitchen today, with microwaves, with ovens, with dishwashers, and fridge, obviously, right? You can go to the market and get food for the next week,
right?
And then, sure, you might still have to cook more often than once a week, but then you can bulk cook, you can save it in the fridge, you go out to eat.
Yes.
So it allowed women to have more time outside of the traditional sense of staying in the kitchen, and for them to pursue what they wanted to pursue. So that was what, was the greatest. That's the angle that they took. I was like, oh shoot, like I never kind of thought about it, because at least I was born in 1995, and at that point, women were still traditionally, I'm from Japan. I grew up. My childhood is in Japan. And Japan still is definitely lacking behind the United States in terms of the progressiveness of the culture.
Yeah.
So very still traditional, right? But still, I never experienced the time where my mom or my grandma has to go to the store every single day.
Right.
Spend all day cooking, and after that, now they got to go clean, and that's their entire day.
Yeah.
Something like so. I mean, definitely the opportunities are rising. So in that sense, your original statement was like, why, or the question was, why are they getting less exposure to it? I think they just had a late head start. Systematically, like culturally.
Yes.
They got a late start.
Yes.
So that's
Dang.
one thing.
No, that's too, man, well said. So similar to that, right? I think them need their necessity for the cooking or the getting of the foods and preparation has been streamlined, right? It's basically a summary of what you said. And then kind of what I was saying, the exposure and the encouragement, and honestly, societally, the realization that, hey, women are capable, I think are allowing them to enter the workforce at larger numbers and in a more diverse settings that, again, we typically don't see women. And kind of on the lines of what you said, the advancements in the kitchen, which I think was awesome. I think, like, from a nurturing perspective too, I'm sure you back a couple hundred years ago, you have a child, and I never have been a mom, nor will I ever. But like,
You never know.
you never know. You never know. No, I know I won't. Like, that is a very intensive job from birth till they become semi-autonomous. Like, the mom has to be with them, and I say mom, it could be the father, right? Blending of the roles, but certain things have to be the mom.
Absolutely.
And now you introduce nannies, daycares, things that can supplement the mom or a parent having to always be there. Again, kind of frees up their time to kind of dive into society in a way
Go get that bread.
You know what I mean? Like, they haven't been able to before. So these are all little different nuanced, like the cooking piece, the nurturing piece, the working piece that kind of haven't been there before, that I think as society progresses, these new advancements, as you said, or whatever, is like kind of freeing up that role to some extent.
One thing I do want to say, make a comment on the mom piece, right?
Yeah.
And I love my mom. It made it sound like I'm going to say something.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's
Mom, don't listen.
It's a good comment. Like, it came from Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone, whether you like him or not, there's a lot of mixed feelings about him. He's a real estate guy. He buys a lot of apartment complexes and commercial buildings like that. His wife, Elena Cardone, she was also in the real estate space. She does business with him, and then they have 2 kids together. And then I was just kind of looking at it from her perspective. In the videos, she said she was like, she used to be ashamed of saying, like, oh, what do you do? Like, your husband's all this like billionaire, super rich guy. What do you do? It's like, she used to say, oh, I'm just a mom. Like, that's a bad thing or something. But then later on, she started to really think about it. She's like, you know what? Like, I don't want to put the word just a mom there, but like, being a mom is like a crazy account. Like, it's hard. Like, dude, would I want to do it?
Yeah, right.
Really? Like, it seems like a pretty hard job. It's a pretty selfless job. So, just to say, I think traditionally, and still some people think, and because I hear that saying, they're like, hey, I'm just a mom, just a stay-at-home wife. But depending on what they do behind the scenes, it could be just as grand as what other people do.
Yeah.
Not away from the home, right? So, little plug.
Yes. I feel like they're probably like the glue to families. Sure, whoever the breadwinner is physically going out, bringing in the physical capital to uphold the family structure, support the necessities of life that require money. Got it. But to come home and have that, just like, I don't know, there's a quote that says, somebody said, like, your house isn't a home until like your woman's there.
Okay.
Like, it's just a spot, but then the woman, I'm gonna say, brings the love. Like, love goes two ways, but that nurturing aspect and kind of just is like the glue in the interior of your home. That you can't like put a price on that. Like that, yeah, you shouldn't say like just a mom. That, I think that does hold a lot of weight. So I think, yeah, we definitely have to anchor on that. I want to touch on something else you said, how Grant Cardone's wife, what was her name?
Elena
Cardone. She, she almost, in what you just said, I sensed a mindset shift. She said just a mom, and then something clicked where she was like, why am I saying just? I think there is a lot of psychological things changing with time as well for the women, and I'll elaborate on that. I think then, like, some importance is being put on motherhood, and like, hey, it's not an easy job, it's not a walk in the park, and like nobody's downplaying it. But also, in some of the things we named, I think women, they were told, or it was kind of, or from what they saw in previous generations, like, hey, these are your roles, again, confined to the household, etc. But now the narrative in society is changing, and it's allowing them to kind of think in ways, or realize that they can do more than they were doing before. So I think society may have both suppressed what they can do, but now as the narrative changes, there's, I see positive things to, like you said, like get women in companies or whatever it may be. But I think there's a psychological shift, not only society, but like for the women themselves, who have more confidence and are being encouraged more to just kind of do more and like realize their potential. Which is why, like, I would rebel against the sense of saying like, hey, gender roles, especially within the household, because I think maybe some extend beyond the household, are like, the man does this, the woman does this, and for some reasons we named, I think that's starting to expand, and I think we'll continue on this trajectory of like blending the roles a little bit.
I agree. Blending. I think the blending is like,
right.
The line gets kind of shady a little bit. I agree with that statement, because at least on the narrative on social media that I see, and always the social media ones are always extreme. It's always on like extreme on super, one side. I don't necessarily agree with everything, but now in 2024, they can go pursue any opportunity that they want. What I want to kind of get away from personally is, I don't want a traditional female job, whatever that means for you. Like, for example, like growing up in Japan, and even, my mom's Japanese, my dad's American, Caucasian, and my mom just always cooked, right? And that, I would say you would agree that's been a traditional female role, right?
Yes.
And I don't want the narrative that's a bad thing. I want it to be more like, not one way or the other, but basically say, hey, if you're a woman, like if you're a female, you can go work, but then like it's not a bad thing at all to take care of these things at the house. Like, I'm married, and like, I guess traditionally I do bring a lot more money than her, income wise. And she does do pretty much all of the house chores.
Yeah.
Do I help? I do. I try to sometimes, but I guess she doesn't like my quality of work.
Did you guys have a directed discussion about that? Because I think that's interesting too.
Not really, because like, her cleaning standards are different than mine.
Okay, yeah.
Like, I could be fine going out a month not cleaning, but she can't go a week without cleaning.
But see, even that microcosm that we just named, you guys not having to have that conversation and fell into those roles. You made a little bit more money, so right, that makes sense. But that's interesting too.
Okay, I do want to point out, 2024, so very earlier this year, we had a discussion, so it's not the case like this anymore, but like for the first like January, February, March, she did bring in a little bit more money than me. because she had multiple income streams and with the job, so she was doing a lot. So she did, on paper, bring in more money.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I was helping out with a lot of dishes and dishwashers, and I never did the vacuum, but I always did laundry. Like, so, and then we made a decision that she wants to go pursue something else. So she's not working right now. But in that conversation, I'm like, hey, you're going to take over all the house duties. And she's like,
Nice.
no, like,
Yeah.
she likes doing that, right? But then I just feel like it doesn't help because men, in a joking manner, even if they're joking or not, like, they say things in a derogatory term. Like, it's like, hey, go make me a sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, that's like a rude thing. Like, you could say, like, hey, I just had a super long day. I would really appreciate it if you could go make me food.
Yeah. As long as it goes both ways, probably. Yeah.
Right. And as long as you're filling your roles, like, I don't think a lot of women will be like, no, like, blah, like, right. Even if, because the argument goes, you know, if women and men are both working, and let's say everything is married in this case, just
Okay.
to
Just make a level play.
girlfriend, boyfriend, depends on the situation a lot, right? But let's say everything we talk about today is going to be based on they're married. But if they're both working, and when they both come home, like, I still want the women to do the house stuff. And then I've heard arguments where, like, that's not fair because you go, I also work and I have to come back. But the caveat is, like, if she wants to go, if she needs something that traditionally a man would do, like, I don't know, fix a car. I'm not a car person. I'm not. But let's say the traditional average guy probably knows about a thing or two about cars. But, like, he would be able to go make sure that he can go fix it for her or take it to the dealership so they're not getting ripped off. Things like that, right? Like, I think we need to kind of normalize that, hey, it's not because you're a man, because you're a man. Like, it's more like, hey, because you're a man, you're better at some things than women. But to caveat that, women are much better at men in other stuff.
I mean,
but I don't like the narrative that, hey, everything has to be equal. I like the more of the yin and yang approach of, like, hey, you're good at this, why don't you do that? I'm
that's
good
the
at
best.
this, so I'm gonna go take care of that.
That's the best method.
And as a marriage, you're one team, so you're trying to cover both grounds.
Right.
I think that's more of a healthy and better narrative for any family. Obviously, you know, dependent on your family. Every marriage is unique.
Correct.
For the most part, for the majority of the people, I think that's more of a healthy message than, I'm not doing that because I'm a man. I'm not doing that because I'm a woman. Like, that's your, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's interesting. Again, keeping it in the vein of the mentality, do you think, in, like, psychological effects, do you think a man could get emasculated, or a woman can feel, I don't know what the equivalent is for femininity, but like, do you think men are like I need to, even if the woman doesn't want them to or need them to, like, I need to do these things to, again, be filling my role? Or, so now we're kind of flipping roles. It's like, okay, maybe we as men might generally expect or hope, or when we enter our marriages or relationships, expect this. But on the other side, do you think people can feel belittled if they're not doing certain roles? Like, if I'm a woman and I don't know how to cook, or I'm not cooking, like, does that have any mental effects? Or if, like, I got, like, I don't know much about cars. Luckily, my dudes that I work with, they're always, like, spin game to me about cars, and they're always talking about cars in the office. I don't know anything about cars. I feel like some people can, I don't know, that, you know, that, I mean, I'll admit it, I don't, just make me feel any type of way. Like you said, I can take it to the shop, but I mean, my girl could also take it to the shop if she needed to. So do you think there is, I guess this is a two-part question now, do you think that could make men or women feel some type of way if they don't fit these traditional roles? And do you think that there should be an initiative with that person to, like, hey, I need to figure this out because I'm a woman, or I need to do this because I'm a man? kind of a
Shoot, I definitely think some people, not even some, I think a lot of people would be belittled if they can't fulfill the expectations placed upon them by their society, culture and society.
Yeah.
I do think so. Like I said, I literally experienced that firsthand, right? For a period of moment, she was making more money than me. It didn't feel good, even though our household income was obviously up, right? It didn't feel good, to be honest. I could live with it. And therefore, I was doing a traditionally women's job, like washing the dishes and doing the dishes and dishwashers and, stuff like that. So that was like whether can be, yes, I do think people can be belittled, and I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'd rather have it the other way, right? What was your second question?
Like, do you think people should take initiative to learn those gender roles?
Yeah, I think it's healthy for a couple to kind of have their own groove. And if one doesn't like it, maybe like the other person's like not even aware of it. Like they're just used to doing it, because so and then now
you're on your own at some point. Like before you get at some point you were doing everything yourselves.
Yeah, right. So then when they combine together, like if, for example, like what I really like to do is I really like to budget. I every single month.
You're a money guy.
I look at everything we have just to make sure everything's in the right place. She doesn't like doing that, but if she was doing her own thing, I would say, hey, like I'd rather do it together, and I want to lead it. So it's not because she's incapable or can't understand it, whatever.
Yeah.
I personally rather take that thing. And then thankfully for me, she was like, yeah, like I don't want to do that. Anyway, so you go do that. But we do it together. I initiate it. I take the lead in that conversation. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing that up. Like, hey, I feel a certain type of way. As a man, I want to do this for you.
Yeah.
Same thing as a woman. I think that's like the more not natural, but like more beautiful, healthy relationship.
It is very ideal.
Like, hey, I don't like it if he told me to go make a sandwich, but I see that you're working hard. I will go make you food. Right? I think that's, and like women want to support their man traditionally.
Yeah.
Just as men want to provide for the family. Like, so I don't think it's a bad thing. Like people are putting too much negative, like, story around this gender thing.
Interesting. So, I want to comment on something like, and this is what I want to get away from, right? Traditional narrative says, men do this, women do this, to the point where you even said it, in your own relationship when she was making a little bit more money, you felt some type of way. In my head, I would love to see a world where those can be so fluid and ebb and, like, woman's making more money, men doesn't care. Men's making more money, woman doesn't care. Men vacuums, woman's cool, you know what I mean? And it just like flows, which is kind of what you're saying. Like in a healthy relationship, I think that is the balance. And the partner wouldn't sense anything, but in our heads, you still get that like vacuuming, like, damn, like I'm vacuuming today, or she making a little more money. And that's what this is me just pretty much hypothesizing at this point. Like, if we can get to, because again, I do think we're trending to a space where those roles are blending. But even so much so where there's no subconscious thought of like, dang, I should be doing what she's doing, or she should be doing what I'm doing. And, I don't think it'll ever get completely there, because like we were saying, I think in some ways, or the mindset piece, I think we can get there. But in actuality, like what men do and what women do, I don't think it'll ever be equal. Like you said, you don't think it should be equal. And I don't think it will be, because of like genetic differences where women are better biologically at certain things and men are better biologically. So I think we understand that. But just from like a mental accepting piece,
I don't think everyone will agree with that. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I do think men are better at a lot of things than women.
Oh, yeah.
And women are better at a lot of things than men. Mm-hmm. But not everyone agrees with you or us. But like, I think at least for the activist side, it's very extreme on one end.
Yeah.
I think a lot of their reasonings are flawed because they say, hey, they want equality. Like, our population, right? It's we can pretty much say it's 50-50, men and women,
Yeah.
right? And I've heard argument. I don't know if there's a majority of the women's rights activists or the minority of the extreme people, but I've heard on social media, watched some interviews about how like certain females, like they feel very strong about, hey, we should have 50-50 representation on like pretty much everything we do. But I don't think that's so, it's never gonna, that's not what you guys want either. I'm talking to them. Because, for example, like bricklayers, it's like 90 points, 90, whatever, it's 90 something % men and single digit women.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah.
Because
And
they don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It's a
And men are naturally also strong. Like for the physical labor, like men are naturally stronger.
right. Like for like garbage people.
Yeah.
Like you don't, not that anyone wants to be the garbage guy, right? I don't think, I mean, we need them. I hope, I think I heard like they get paid decently well too, which is, I'm very happy about. But like, if you ask men and women, like, hey, for this amount of money, would you be a garbage man? I think more men will be willing to say yes than females.
Dude, that's good. Because I think for men, it's the amount of money. But for women, it's like, what am I actually doing? Like, I'm not going to be messing with garbage. Well, guys, like, I'll mess with garbage if you pay me enough. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's, yeah.
And a lot of trade jobs, right? And I don't, like, I'm so sick of hearing, oh, but I know this one. Oh, dude, there's outliers in every, like, that's not a valid argument.
Right.
Just because you sold one, right? But I'm saying overwhelming majority of the tradesmen that I worked with, electricians, plumbers, tile layers, the painters, like anything, roofers, I have yet to see a female, yet to see it. And, you know, I
don't find that surprising, which also says something like,
right. So, and then that's like, it's desire, not, or I guess the non-desire to do something because of the genetic, like how the brain's wired. But you look at nursing, right? There's so many more female nurses, male nurses, and that's a high-paying job too. So it's, and then I rather have a female nurse than a male nurse, to be honest, because they're more caring. I feel like,
like,
like
I was about to say I do too,
like,
but I had to check my, like, why do I? Like, I would too.
they're
like,
usually.
Why do I prefer? You know what I mean?
Like, image that they're nicer, more caring, more emotional. So the argument goes both ways, and rather than saying, hey, everything should be equal, we should say, hey, you know, like, I mean, I don't want to get too far away from the traditional means. Maybe not the message behind it, that, hey, women need to stay at the house and men need to go work.
Yeah.
We can get away from that.
Yes.
But I think we should also emphasize the beauty of, like, I want kindergarten teachers to be females. I don't know. It just sounds better to women
capitalizing on some of their natural strengths.
Yeah, like,
good more.
I think on average they'll do a better job taking care of young children. I really do.
Yeah, I think biology supports that, and a bit, like, women nurture young children when they have to, you know what I mean? They're used to that. Yeah, it's again, I think they're predisposed to that. So I pretty much agree with like what you were saying there. Definitely. All right, so we talk about how we're trying to approach equality, but certain things we don't think are ever going to be completely equal, right? You just articulated. I think
it should be.
Right. Exactly. Should. Yeah. Or I'm gonna even say can be. Yeah, like in nature, like you're right, wouldn't be. Like there's some things I think how we operate, it creates these situations and these scenarios. But there's some things I think that exist in nature, which is kind of what we're leaning into, like in this part of the conversation, which is right. Like they don't even need to be. I'm not necessarily everything that exists in nature can be improved upon, but yeah, certain things I think women fall into those jobs or men fall into those jobs because it makes sense. Now, again, on the flip side of that coin, there are some things that I think like how society operates, we foster. Well, this one I'm about to bring up kind of can go either way. I think we do it to ourselves a little bit, but I also think nature has a say in it as well, and that's like the pay gap, right? So we're talking about some things that men maybe naturally better at. You brought up engineering earlier, which the desirability piece. Maybe women don't really desire engineering degrees or jobs as much, therefore you don't see them in that field as much. It also could be part of how their brain's wired. I'm gonna speak less on that because that's not like my field of study. But no matter what the reason is, like you see less women in that field, and that's typically a higher paying job, right? That's one of many higher paying jobs we could go down. But again, women not desiring it, I think that comes from a kind of like an antiquated narrative of like, hey, women don't do this, or maybe you shouldn't do this, or men are better at that. And then you see more men in that field, and now, I mean, you have to extrapolate this across like multiple jobs and like
I think it's both social norms and also how the brain is wired.
Exactly what I'm saying, right?
For example, I think my wife and I are more on the traditional side in terms of how society views the gender roles, right? And at least recalling my experiences, I also went through elementary school, middle school, high school, college, just like anyone else, right? And from what I noticed, like females are much better at like the arts and crafts, like I don't know if the left side of the brain, right side of the brain, but like one side of the brain is like they're much stronger at. And at least for men, not everyone, more men are naturally better at math and physics and engineering and those STEM type related, the average, right?
It's important to note, yeah.
They're like, oh, I know, everyone does. I do too. I do too. So with that, like my wife, she doesn't want to do calculus. She had to do calculus, and we were struggling relationship wise because we were fighting about calculus, trying to help her. But calculus, like I really enjoyed it. Like how the professor lays out the problems to be perfectly solved. Like it gives me a 2-second high when I solve it, and then move on, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's just how brains are wired, and then socially, those jobs that men's brain are more wired on the average, are typically higher paying, whereas the nurturing and what women are really good at typically are less paying, and that's a social problem, right? Not a biology problem. So that's the that's the pay, where the pay gap starts from in the first place. And even if like I would really love to get a perfectly non-biased statistics on this, which is impossible to do, but like if I went on the side of the street and asked, I don't know, 100,000 females, like, hey, there's a job that you can make $50K being a receptionist at this place, or you can work the same exact hours for $80K, but you're gonna be in sewers. You're gonna be, you can't have like, you're not like, you're gonna be dirty every single day, stinky every single day. I just have an intuition that they're gonna choose the $50,000 receptionist job. I really do. And I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. And that's just how the brains are wired. And people are trying to fight against that narrative.
So do you think, all right, so right, because I'm rolling with you, I'm agreeing with what you're saying. Do you think that over time the brains are wired like this because of what men and women have been doing, and it's solidifying or even creating this divide in what men are good at and what women are good at, because of the roles that were created? It's like, what came first, chicken and egg? What came first, the roles or the genetic wiring? Or were we wired like this, which is why men fell into those roles, women fell into these roles? I guess I'm leaning towards the latter because, like, again, men are stronger, so physical jobs, right, that automatically makes sense. But for some of these jobs that are less physical and maybe more cerebral or academic in
More brain power.
Yeah, like in
than physical.
because even like it's a different type of brain. Like a psychologist could be you're very brain intensive, but you have to be like emotionally receptive, and it's just a different, like you said, left brain, right brain, different part of your brain. So yeah, I'm just wondering, like, did over time the narrative just kind of like solidify what men and women should be doing,
I don't think it's going to change.
or has it been more so genetic?
I mean, genetically, this has been built. We've gone through DNA mutation over
Exactly.
how many?
What's what Darwin?
I don't think we're going to change based on recent history how our brains are wired. We may on a little tiny scale,
Yeah.
but I don't think we're overcoming evolution, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
if that's what you're getting at.
It wasn't, but we can take it there. I think the social narrative will change a lot faster than the biological one, right? Like much easier to change. And honestly, I think that's what we should focus on. Like women should be encouraged to do all these things and just let them know, like, hey, you're capable. Whereas before, I think it was a story of like, you shouldn't be, or even in the worst case, like you're not capable of it. Where now I would love to see, hey, you're capable, you're able, it's available. And then, like you said, the desirability is not there. That's cool because that's on that individual. I think that is where I see it heading and why I think we're going away from gender roles. But in the same conversation, we have to make that acknowledgement of the predisposition of someone's better than another. But it's funny on the evolutionary note. I wonder, if we're able to push that narrative and we see that blending for so long. I mean, it won't be in our lifetime or even the next couple of generations, but it's just interesting to play with the idea of like, will we see a near equal world? I don't know. But to counter what I just said, you'll always have a sense of like when a woman has a child, like no matter how you flip, like she has to be in that child's life in the early stages, and that oftentimes like affects careers, whereas men never have to do. They might take off or whatever, but like a woman has to do that unless you give up your child or whatever, and that's something that that's gonna be, that's gonna be a thing. That you always hear of women like, oh, it's not fair because women have to choose the child or their career or an auxiliary figure. It's not, but it's biological. You're right. You can't work and take care of the child. Like,
then we can't.
What do we do? Yeah. I don't know of anything we could do, you know what I mean? So there are things like that. It's like a hard stop where
it's like someone saying in the third world country, like, it's not fair because I wasn't born in the United States. Yeah, sure, you're right. It's not fair, but
it's reality though. Yeah.
It's
interesting, right? Yeah. I don't know. I think again, just making sure we're showing both sides.
Yeah.
There are areas we can get better, and that if I had to pick, if I had to pick, Julian, do you agree with traditional gender roles or not? I do not agree with traditional gender roles. However, right, I acknowledge that men are better at some things, women are better at other things. Period. Like I know we keep saying it, but I acknowledge that.
I mean, shoot, I'll say I agree with it.
Yeah,
I'll say I agree with gender roles because I think naturally more couples, marriages are gonna fall into the traditional gender roles, regardless of if the female works or not. Like men still, on an average, men's still gonna be bringing in more money than the female. I do think. And then I want to say I agree with that narrative, but there's always outliers.
Yes.
I would lean more on that side.
Okay.
And that's like, I'm not hating. It's just I just think it's reality.
Yeah. And let me dissect this. So, right, I disagree with the normal gender roles from a standpoint. I guess I need to caveat it from a standpoint of like, that's, I guess, what the entering assumption should be. And you said something earlier that I think was best. I forgot how you phrased it, but every couple is going to have their own conversation to figure out how they do it, which is the best case scenario. That's like how you're going to get to the solution, whether you fall into traditional gender roles or not. Or, you might be, I think in some capacity, you'll probably fit in them, whether you are like 100%, like woman doesn't pay for anything. She cooks, she cleans, she takes care of the kids. Men, like it may be like very strong towards them, or, it's more blended, as we keep saying. But I don't think that should be the entering assumption, hey, I met this woman, like we're kind of just getting to know each other, and she's like automatically assuming without any conversation, without any knowledge of kind of what I got going on, that like, hey, you're gonna do these things and I'm gonna do these things. And I guess that's what I mean.
I do want to point out, and I'm sorry, this is a biased observation I'm going to point out because I'm a man. It is a bias. I just want to say that.
At the record show.
But at least on, like, I'm not in the dating scene, so I don't have firsthand experience of this. But from social media side, on Reddit, and I'm a big Reddit user. But what I've gathered, is that there's a lot of like hypocritical statements being made.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the independent women, right? Like, I don't need a man, I can do whatever. But let's say they go on a date.
Yeah.
Right. And then I hear a lot of like, oh, like you're the guy, you should be paying for this.
Right.
That logic, it doesn't make sense to me.
That's one.
If you're gonna stick to one, just stick to both. Right?
So wait, back up. So you're saying,
if you're saying, hey, I'm an independent woman, I don't need a man.
Got you.
Why
be independent?
Yeah,
I got you.
Something that's convenient for them.
So it's gender roles, bro.
Why does it make sense that now all of a sudden you're depending on him? That's the norm, the physical. Like, yeah, I agree with the norm. That's what I'm saying. I will pay for the meal.
Yeah, okay.
But then you can't just say, oh, will you pay the meal and I'm also not gonna clean the house. Like it doesn't make sense.
Yes. Ooh, I like that. It's the narrative, the mindset, right? Like I will also, right, I think, you should come to the table. I don't mind paying either. It's just like, if we go to a meal, it's all I ask for. Like meals come and they bring out one check. They usually like put the little trifold thing like by the guy. If I go to grab my wallet and we haven't discussed it, I want to like, oh, do you want me to like get my half or whatever? That's all I need. And I'll be like, you know what, I got it. But that expectation for you, and that I think aligns with what I'm like, is dissolving the gender role narrative, because they come out, there's no discussion, and you just automatically like think I'm gonna pay for it, which I don't mind doing. Yeah, for me it's just the thought behind. Yeah, I guess that assumption piece.
I go in thinking I'm gonna pay.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Same, right? Exactly.
I'm not gonna go out if I think that I'm not gonna risk it. Like, oh, I got no money. Let me see who paid today. Like, no, dude, like I will only go out if I have the money to pay for whatever we're going to for both people.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So,
do we want to talk about DEI?
Okay, so we can go into that. Which supports.
Okay, first, what is DEI?
Yeah, diversity, equity, inclusion, right?
Well, equity or equality?
Equality. Excuse me. Good catch. Diversity, equality, inclusion. In the workforce, trying to foster pretty much that. Like,
do you agree?
A culture of inclusion. I do agree. Because I'm a big proponent of not only diversity and this is a weird one, because you could say like, oh, they're just trying to make it like the company look good on paper from a diverse standpoint. Like, typically diversity looks good, but like truly a diversity in thought, which encompasses diversity in thought and like academic knowledge, diversity in thought and background, like cultural. I think those things, and maybe some companies, the diversity could be less important than others. But I think it's a good initiative to foster that diversity, the equality, the inclusion. And that kind of helps dissolve the narrative of, hey, men typically do this and it's a man-saturated field, which, make sure I fall back, like some men are predisposed, or, some things men are predisposed just naturally better at. But yeah, all in all, if I have to pick one, I am in favor of DEI, like for that reason.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, personally, I am not a fan of that.
Right.
And I think, regardless of man, women, transgender, blue, white, red, whatever you are, I think whoever has the higher objective,
yes,
like stats,
yes,
should get the job. Personally,
yes,
I think it's the most fair, I think. And the only caveat I do think, or I have, is if it was systematically disabling for certain gender to be in this field.
Yes.
For example, like women could not be on a submarine. And at least in my lifetime,
Right.
I was Navy before.
Yep.
In my lifetime,
they
allowed women to be.
They changed that. Yep.
So, do I think that's necessary? Hell yes, I absolutely get the foot in the door. But after the trend has been broken and there's no rules on that anymore, I think you just let the marketplace do its thing.
Yes.
That's my take, and I get it. I may have flaw arguments here and there, but what I'm more strongly convinced on is if those requirements involve a physical standard. Because, like, for example, Navy is a great example. And Navy, I mean, maybe not the great.
Maybe like Marines.
Yeah, maybe like Marines might be an example.
Yeah.
And even they're not a perfect example because there's a lot of jobs that doesn't really require physical, like you don't need to be physical to do certain jobs. For example, like the administrative people, I don't know their MOS, at least in the Navy, we had PSs and
YN, Yeoman.
You do not, you don't need to be physically fit to perform the job.
Correct.
And so in the Navy, we have male standards for push-ups. It's planks now, right?
It is
push-up,
yes,
planks.
Correct. There's no sit-ups. Correct.
And men, given the same age group, men's standards are higher than female standards. And I agree with that because there's different jobs that you can go do that doesn't everyone. That's the caveat.
Yeah.
But for example, like Navy SEALs, the top of the top, best of the best, crazy people in a good way. Do I think because I don't think there ever has been a female SEAL yet.
Sounds crazy. I feel like I haven't heard any. I don't because it's 24. I would assume there has been.
We can fact check this after.
Definitely, if there was an extreme minority, maybe one or two, like in history. Yeah.
Because at least when I was going to school in ROTC, one of the girls in my unit was the first person to go to like the mini buds in college. Yeah. But she ended up not becoming a SEAL.
Yeah.
But would you agree to lower the standard so you can get women in to be a Navy SEAL?
No.
Okay. I think we have some baseline agreeing on a lot of stuff. Yeah. Like, for example, the people that protect the president and like rallies and stuff. I don't know what the job title. But like those require physical, actual things to do. But when it comes to that, I don't think there should be any. Well, I don't think there should be DEI in anything unless it's a caveat I stated before, where it has to be broken a systematic broken into a system to overcome the systematic barriers.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people like you gotta. I mean, if they want to get in, you gotta meet the physical standard that's
right
for everyone. And
and then so much good. Yeah.
And we have to understand women are at a disadvantage.
Yeah. Yes.
It is what it is. But like for certain types, like you cannot get away from having the best of the best.
Like the best.
And I'm not
subject. Yeah.
But then like I don't want people to hear the wrong idea that I'm putting. I'm not saying only men should be. I'm just saying whoever is qualified to meet this bar that the Navy has set for this example.
Yeah.
Right. Whoever crosses it, they should be able to join. Whoever it is.
I get it. Oh man. So you just said a lot of things, and I'm gonna try to tie together some of the points. But so I went to the Naval Academy, and one of my classmates, and I graduated in 2017, just became the first female African American jet pilot. Like last year, she got like fully qualified or whatever. I think it was last year. Don't quote me on the year, but in the last like 2 years, 'cause I remember it was everybody we graduated was like, oh my god, like that's amazing, that's cool. But again, I was just also thinking like, dang, it's like 2023, and like this is first happening, and so you look kind of like what just kind of ties in everything. You're looking at is this the first time woman or African American woman? So now we're looking at the intersectionality where like multiple factors may come into play. Okay. Like, was it just a lack of desirability? Which I think so. I think probably only in recent decades or whatever, like women are desiring, decades probably are desiring to fly. But again, that was stemming from at some point definitely couldn't, much like the submarines. Now the desirability, and then is it the qualifications, the standards? So now to tie in the DEI piece, which now I think culturally or societally we're recognizing that, hey, women can be more value added in more fields. I think those initiatives push back on, like you said, often not like some of the systematic things or against women, whatever social economic background, I don't know, disabled, race, and help get some qualified people. This is not just like, hey, we want anybody from this pocket of people to get in here. No, there's still a level of qualification. But I think it helps that, and I think there's some things that DEI fights that can't really be quantified. So like you said, systematically are put down. And again, I don't know. I just think there are some societal like tensions and stuff against whoever these pockets. It doesn't have to be women or race that DEI helps like include those people. But again, has to be very balanced, because you don't want to lower standards for certain things to like just get these people in. But I also, in the same breath, which is why it's a difficult problem to tackle, I think it's important to get some of these other people and capture, because they're very good and can bring value added. So, yeah, that was kind of like an anecdotal story on like kind of this topic, or really just shouting her out. That, yeah, she, first female and African-American jet pilot. I don't know, I think it's kind of cool and kind of appropriate for this topic. But
yeah, I mean, as long as there was no standards lowered for her to get in, like I fully support that.
Right.
Great for her, and I feel like because of that story, more people will be inspired. Like female African Americans in particular will be more inspired to go chase after that. Because have you heard like I want to say it was like the 4-minute mile mark story. It was like the 80s or 90s or something.
No, I don't think I have.
The scientists were saying like it is
I know where you're going. Yeah,
scientifically impossible for the man to break.
Somebody did it, and then it was like
4. Yes. Yep. And then obviously they were wrong, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Someone did it, and like literally, like I don't know the number, but it was like 20 people did it.
That's powerful, right? Yeah, that's crazy.
All you need is the first person. It's gonna come with time, and I guarantee if you still keep the. I'm going back to the Navy SEAL thing, because we still haven't. I don't think we had a female SEAL yet, but like, you just keep the standard the same, never lower it for this DEI stuff. There will be a female Navy SEAL one day. I guarantee it. I mean, that's you have infinite amount of time versus So yeah, I mean that's the thing, like, because there's two big things I don't like about DEI, which is, one, you're not getting the best of the best. You're getting something based on something that doesn't matter. I don't think race matters. I don't think gender matters. And if you're qualified to get the job, so just be qualified to get the job.
But that sounds good. But and this is where I couldn't prove. I think some people might have been, in some cases, were the best of the best, and still weren't getting the job.
So, but that creates the ambiguity, right?
Right. Yeah.
If the workforce, for example, is publicizing, hey, we want to meet these quotas, we want to hire more female engineers, and if you're a female engineer that got in, like, did you get in based on merit, or did you get in based on gender? You don't know, because if there's not a DI like stuff,
and you get it,
you know that you got in based on merit.
Yeah.
So I think it's unfair for those people that actually got in with merit, regardless of gender, whatever, that always has in their back of their mind, and also other people thinking like, oh, she probably got in because,
and that's what it is. Because I don't think they don't publicize, like, if somebody gets in the company, they're like, hey, you are DEI, how, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know, you just know there's a DEI initiative, and that person might fit the description for somebody. It's more so, I think, the narrative of people like, did they get hired because of this? But
it's not. I think that's unfair. I think that's so unfair for the person that's actually deserving of the prestigious, accomplishment that they had. Like
that's with the assumption that the DI hire is not actually.
No, you don't know.
Yeah, that's what.
So you don't know. So I think we should just
Yeah. Is it a difference of, again, it just goes back to the mental, like, you would have, in that circumstance, you'd have to assume that the person that was hired was a DI hire and therefore hired because of that.
my initial
But if you assume that,
would go my initial thought would go to that.
Yeah.
To be honest.
yeah, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess I'm just glad. I think all you can do in that case, because you make a good point, right? Like, definitely, like, holding the standard, I think is important. Like, definitely, there's no real scenario I can think of where I'd be like, oh yeah, it makes sense to like lower the standard, to accommodate for whoever. But in that case where, hey, we want to diversify whatever company, whatever, I think you have to assume that, yeah, it's ambiguous for sure. But there's no way to prove one way or the other. So I guess all you can do is operate off your assumptions.
But at the end of the day, like, private institution, private company, like, dude, you do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
Because even if they're not getting the best of the best, and then they let other people in based on DEI initiatives, if they form a better narrative for that company, that might lead to more revenue in other ways to make, like, there might be a lot of positives that come along.
Trickle down. Yeah.
So I don't know that. I haven't studied that in detail, so I don't know.
You and me both.
So, I mean, dude, if you're private at the end of the day, dude, if they want to do it, I can't really say anything about it.
True. I don't think either one of us.
Yeah,
right.
They do whatever they need to do
Right,
for their
right.
own company or organization success.
Mm-hmm. Switching a bit, something you said earlier, like the example of, I'm an independent woman coming to dinner, but now I want to be paid for. I had to bring it back to that because that was just, it's goofy, like, to think about, but I think it's very prevalent. Like, it's probably happens more often than not. And within this gender roles conversation, that's important too, because I do feel like, I don't want to say you have to pick a side, but it's going to be very hard if you, I don't know, I think you kind of do got to, like, practice what you preach in a sense to claim such strong independence. Like, you could be independent, but those people that are almost like braggadocious about it, or like throwing in your face, and then to want to be treated a certain way, I think is counter, like, it's just like oxymoronic. Like, it's an oxymoron, and that goes into the discussion of, like you said, like, in a lot of ways, right, the gender norm, going against the gender norms, I think it's synonymous with the equality discussion, but a lot of, I'll say, men or women don't truly want equality because there's things that come with that. It's circular now. This goes back to the garbage truck example you gave, or the paying for dinner. It's like, and we kind of talked about this in another episode as well. Like, equality, I don't know, maybe an opportunity is good, but like blanket equality, I don't think is not, it's not what people actually want. It's like, it sounds good
Coming out of your mouth, it sounds good and noble and prestigious.
Yeah.
But if you were to truly implement that, there'd be more people mad than happy.
I think so. Yeah.
I guess,
Yeah.
hard take.
Yeah, hard.
Hard take.
Yeah, I don't think. I definitely don't think equality is the blanket answer there. But we won't go too far into that. So I just want to ask you, where do you see the future of gender roles, like, heading?
As time goes on, I think more and more of the traditional men versus women duties will be blurred the longer time goes.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, there might be initiatives to go the other way. There may be some numbers that moves in one direction versus another. At the end of the day, the general population, majority of the United States will still follow the traditional, men versus women jobs at the end of the day.
Okay.
I do think that. Whereas the narrative I want to hear is it's okay to do those gender related roles because that's what you're good at. It's okay to, like, if you're in a marriage, like, bring each other up, like, help each other with your at your strength rather than bringing both of you guys down by your weaknesses.
Yeah.
And as long as you're more accepting of, like, hey, this is what I'm good at, and it may be because you're a female. You may be good at this certain task because you're a female, and I might be good at this certain task because I'm a man.
Okay.
And it's okay. That's how you were born. We're not going to change your DNA, at least in the near future.
Yeah.
Shoot, I don't even know if, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe you can. So, but I think the message, if people were hearing it, I think they understand the message.
Okay. Another one. I'm throwing a lot at you that I just thought about. Do you think a person who is that fits the opposite role? So let's say if you have a man that is
Trophy husband?
no, I don't even want to say has a lot of feminine traits, but let's say is good at traditionally feminine roles, is societally less desirable. So like if you have a woman that likes and or is better at more men dominant roles, vice versa, if you have a man that enjoys and or is better at typically historically feminine roles, do you think in society like they are less desirable?
Societally, I think they are less desirable.
Yeah. And that's why I think
But for your particular, I'm not saying you, but for the particular situation, if they find a boyfriend or girlfriend, husband, that works for that situation, I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, societal narrative, I think they will be less desirable.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I would agree. And again, I hope that's one of those things, like, I don't think it should be, but yeah, I think it would be, again, because people gravitate towards those normal roles. But we'll let evolution take its course, and
but yeah, that society thing that could change in the future.
Right.
You never,
Right, exactly. All right, damn, I think that's good stuff. We went a lot of places with that. You got any questions for me before we wrap it up?
I'm good.
All right, sweet. All right, that's the take on gender roles. As always, thank you for joining us. You're two neighborhood rebels here. Until next week. That's all we got.